The last oral argument of this regular term of the United States Supreme Court, which really hasn't been regular at all, is going to be this coming Thursday. It has to do with birthright citizenship. Three different federal courts ruling against Donald Trump, trying to rip the beating heart of birthright citizenship out of the U.S. Constitution and change it by executive order, saying that when you're born in America, you're not automatically a U.S. citizen unless Donald Trump says so. That when you come out of the maternity ward and you're discharged from the hospital with your parents or your mom or whatever it is, you're not going to get a blue passport because you're not going to be a U.S. citizen. That's not okay under the 14th Amendment. And every federal judge that's looked at it and every Supreme Court that's looked at it since 1898 has said that. Now we got two major issues coming before the Supreme Court for oral argument on Thursday that are important for you to listen to in a teachable moment. One, birthright citizenship, but also related to it and buried in the case is whether federal courts have the ability to issue nationwide injunctions from their little courthouses. Or do you have to go to every federal courthouse and every federal judge to get an injunction on a constitutional issue? That can't be the law. That's what Donald Trump wants the law to be, but we'll see if the Supreme Court is going to do it. We'll know right away, almost within the first 10 minutes of the oral argument on Thursday. Join us on Legal AF MTN, the YouTube channel, where we're doing a live feed and then commentary pregame and postgame about that oral argument this Thursday. Come on over to Legal AF MTN, free subscribe, set the reminders, you'll know all about it. In the meantime, let's take a listen to our discussion on Legal AF, the YouTube channel and podcast about this very issue.
Big oral arguments coming up. Talk to us about it.
Oh, yeah. And great news, too, because it's an opportunity to come over at Legal AF MTN, our YouTube channel, because we are running the live feed of the oral argument. I'll do some commentary. I think I might try to get Dina Tal to join me as well. Maybe a little pregame show. And then this should be the last oral argument of this term, save for some emergency applications. And we know this administration loves emergency applications. There's been 13 of them as the Trump administration figured out there's a loophole to pressure the court to ideologically vote immediately, almost benefiting the Trump administration, although they are on a losing streak, as I outlined earlier, a 3-0, a very important losing streak at the United States Supreme Court when it comes to immigration, showing where the boundaries are for the Supreme Court, at least when it comes to immigration. This one harks back. It's hard to believe it's only been 110 or 112 days, whatever it is, of this administration. But the first temporary restraining order and then preliminary injunction under birthright citizenship was Judge Kofenor in Seattle, who said in his 40 years of being on the bench, it was the most blatantly unconstitutional thing and the easiest case he'd ever have to decide. That's where it started, with the first injunction. I don't want to get lost in the sea of 150 other injunctions came out of there. And then other courts around the country. And they all issued nationwide injunctions because the injunction has to fit the crime. The injunction has to fit the injury or the remedy. And so the argument that the Trumpers make when they don't like nationwide injunctions, when it's not to their benefit, is a judge should only deal with the parties that are in front of them. And that's what Judge Gorsuch has said in the past. So they shouldn't give a remedy that's any broader than the relief that's being sought or the parties that are involved. Maybe. But what do you do when the fundamental issue is about something as constitutionally important as a 14th Amendment provision that provides who is and who is not a U.S. citizen? And Donald Trump wants to rip the beating heart of birthright citizenship out of the Constitution by way of an executive order. And there should be no argument, even at the Supreme Court level, even with the way it's stacked to the right, that can't be done. And again, they are misinterpreting some language that's already been interpreted over and over again by the United States Supreme Court, going back to 1898, about who is subject to the laws of the United States and who isn't. Well, if they're illegal and they're undocumented, they're not subject to our laws. So therefore, a baby born, is not really a citizen. That's not how the interpretation has ever gone. Now, has this Supreme Court shown a penchant for overturning super precedent that's been around for 50 years, 100 years? Of course. I mean, the very foundation of Legal AF has to do with calling out their destruction and lying during the confirmation process of Supreme Court justices of precedent, like Roe versus Wade. And that's not the only one, the Chevron decision. I mean, you and I could just do a show for a year about the precedent that they've overturned. So that could happen. I just don't see it happening here. But when the injunction is, are you or are you not a citizen? I defy anyone with a straight face, although we will see it with John Sauer on the 15th, argue to the Supreme Court that you can have a non-nationwide injunction related to a fundamental constitutional right. Meaning what? That only in Alabama is a person a birthright citizen, but or only in New York, but not in Alabama, because the nationwide injunction doesn't apply to them. So we're just going to have babies born all around America who are going to fall into different categories of citizenship, depending upon which federal judge was able to issue a ruling in time to cover that. This is no way to run a baseball team, and this is no way to run a democracy or a constitutional republic. So even if you are against nationwide injunctions, you have to recognize, if you're being honest and intellectually honest, you have to recognize that in certain circumstances that go to the heart of the Constitution, for instance, there's no other way but to have one judge issue a nationwide injunction. Because until now, their argument would be, well, we'll just let these individual injunctions, and then it'll eventually get to the Supreme Court, and then we'll make a decision, and then that will be the law of the land. Well, but in the meantime, since you're not issuing stays like that, or at least as regularly as you should, then what do you do with all the babies that are born now? So that's the fight. So it's a it's a major, it's interesting though, Fred, I want to get your opinion when you get it back, Ben, as to why the Trump administration chose this particular constitutional challenge as the vehicle to argue to the Supreme Court that judges don't have the right to issue universal or nationwide injunctions. I'm not sure that's the right winning hand for them, because it will, I believe, get intertwined with the merits. Now, technically, we're not there, although the judges could go in a different direction, as they've been wont to do. We're not there on the substance of the birthright citizenship versus executive order. However, we are. And so there's 3 cases that are joined together. It's going to be like an hour and a half long. What we've done on Legal AF for the live feed is that we have a trigger mechanism that will actually put up the picture. So people in the chat, I'm usually in the chat too, people in the chat will be like, who is that talking? You know, sometimes Kagan and Sotomayor are a little bit hard to discern, and even among the judges, I mean, but we're good at it. So we'll put up who's up at the right time. We participate in the chat at the time, usually get about 5,000 or 10,000 people at that moment. It's a big one. What do you think about what's going to, first of all, why do you think the Trump administration decided to challenge nationwide injunctions by way of birthright citizenship?
Well, it kind of ties this episode nicely and neatly together with a bow. It's like the ending of The Sixth Sense. That's what you get when you watch Legal AF. Riveting. I see dead people, right, Michael Popok? I mean, at the end of the day, is the goal to win, or is the goal to destroy the Supreme Court? Is the goal to have a showdown as quick as possible, no matter what the outcome is? Remember what Stephen Miller said? Remember how they end The Sixth Sense, Popok? And then it's like, oh, that's why. Let's play that clip of. Let's play that clip. Well, who knows? I don't want to ruin the ending. Let's play that clip of Stephen Miller again, and I think it'll answer your question. What's really going on here? Here, play this clip.
That happens, do you think?
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the
You see the guy in the back with the red? That was also one of the signs. remember that was part of it. Every time the person was actually dead, there. Remember from The Sixth Sense? There would actually be like the red. So it turns out that Stephen Miller actually was never alive the entire time, and he's actually a ghoul, and he sees dead people. That's thank you for watching Legal AF. No, I mean, look, but there's truth to that, in the sense that they better do the right thing. You heard what he said. So you bring a case that's outlandish, that in and of itself would turn the Constitution upside down, because it's very clear what the outcome should be. You know, you frame it as an issue of nationwide injunctions as the subterfuge for your broader objective here of tearing the Constitution to shreds, and you push that one. That's why I think they're doing this. And by the way, I think they were open to doing other ones. It was just one of the first ones right away that they were able to push, and they were fine with it, to have this showdown with the Supreme Court, where I think they will eventually. Remember, their audience, remember that 35% question you asked me also? Why are they doing this? Because they want to go to their 35% of Proud Boys, of Oath Keepers, of people who like the cruelty, who no matter what Trump does will always be there, you know, and they want to go, we tried. We wanted to do all of these brutal things. The Supreme Court wouldn't let us, so we got to take it into our own hands right now. That's what I think is happening here, Popok.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a great way to also to tie it all together. Welcome back. It is important when we have the opportunity to listen to how the law is made, how judges make decisions in federal court particularly, sometimes in state court that allows for television, that we embrace it. Right? We learn a lot in that hour and a half oral argument. I'll be able to report on it, but I'm often in the live chat, for instance, for that live feed, and I can do commentary and answer questions for you. We're going to do it on Legal AF MTN. This is going to be the last oral argument of the term before they go off on summer vacation, unless there's more emergency applications that any of them require oral arguments over the summer. And then you'll see me back here talking about an emergency oral argument, but this is the last one of the term. So thank you for being part of our audience. I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.